Ascension. Hey, it's me, Nisi Denise, back to do another reading from a couple of different texts. I want to read something to you, and then we're going to get into We Will Intervene by No Scaphandra, Mr. Claudio Naselli. All right? Listen to this, okay? Want to read this one section to you from another book. This is what he discovered. Everything in existence is a manifestation of the one, the living being we call God. Everything is God. And he came to the conclusion that the human perception is merely light perceiving light. He also saw that matter is a mirror. Everything is a mirror that reflects light and creates images of the light. And the world of the illusion, the dream, is just like smoke, which doesn't allow us to see what we really are. The real us is pure love, pure light. Okay? Now, we're going to get into the human soul and the physical death. This is going to be a good one. All right? So he says, I understand. This is from Mr. Claudio Naselli. All right? And I'm going to hold it up again so you can take a screenshot. The book I was just reading from is called The Four Agreements of Toltec Wisdom or Knowledge. Okay. I was reading that. It just came to my mind. Let's get into it. I understand that this is not an easy question to ask. And in fact, it was not. But it is a recurring question that reaches me from several corners of these continents. And I believe it is important to transmit what Helen said about it. Death is not an end, nor a punishment, nor a reward. It is a process of detachment. The first thing that is interrupted is the coherence of the body. Its systems cease to sustain themselves, and that connection between the perception, memory, and organic function begins to dissolve. But what is essential is not interrupted because it does not depend on the body in order to exist. The neshama is not born with the body, nor is it extinguished with it. It uses the body as a temporary point of anchoring within the system, yet remains connected to the experience in any case. And this is still the most complex part. During life, the new humanity is trained to identify with layers that are essential. A name, a story, achievements, fears, expectations, beliefs, and so on. I'm going to put in here, he doesn't put this in his book, but I'm going to say race, religion, sex, creed, education, financial. We're putting all these filters or layers on each other, okay? And this is the training up in the system, all right? It says, these layers form a structure of identity useful for moving within the system. But they are not what one truly is. When the body can no longer sustain itself, those layers begin to dissolve. They do not disappear all at once. They become disorganized. What was sustained by biology and by the continuity of the psychological time loses its support. Footnote, what would happen if all of that were lost during life? At this moment, something occurs that most have not observed while alive. The difference between what was learned and what is real. The difference between what is learned and what is actually real. If attention was completely absorbed by identification, meaning if everything was I am, my story, my fear, my desire, blah, 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 then the transition is experienced with greater confusion. Not because there is a punishment, but because there is no recognition of what remains when everything else falls away. The interference that during life is experienced as mental noise does not immediately disappear. It can persist as an inertia. Okay. If on the other hand, during life, there were moments of seeing without a filter, even if they were brief, the transition could be different simply because there already exists a prior recognition of what does not depend on the body. Those moments of silence were spaces where the neshama was not being covered by interference. That same quality of seeing facilities detachment from what is not essential, that is completely different from outside the first dome. Part of what you call near-death experiences are indications of this transition, a sense of clarity, detachment from the body, presence without time. They are not complete proofs nor exhaustive descriptions, but they do indicate that perception can exist without the usual physical support. I have died and came back. Don't tell you. There's probably quite a few of us that have, seen the other side. Just going to tell you. The connection with the celestial lands is not only a return, but also a state of non-interference. When the layer of noise and identification loses strength, what was always available is no longer covered. That is why many times it is about ceasing to sustain what prevents seeing. The five masters did not design an end for humanity. They introduced a possibility that the essential could manifest within the finite without losing its nature. Later interventions altered the vehicle. Limited perception. Yep. Reinforced identification. Death in that context does not by itself resolve that alteration. It simply removes the biological support. What remains is what truly is, or rather what has always existed. Okay. That is why understanding death is not a theoretical exercise. It is seeing while alive what is being contained, what is being sustained as one believes oneself to be, and what remains when that support is no longer there. Although this could happen instantly, we understand that with the interference existing in these lands, it becomes exponentially more difficult. Death then is not an event that happens to what you are. It is the end of an identification with what you are not, but believed you were. I'm going to say that one more time for the people in the back row. Hear me when I say this. Death then is not an event that happens to what you are. It is the end of the identification with what you are not, but believed you were. And that process can begin before the body falls to the extent that one sees clearly. All right. The journey of the human soul to the celestial lands. As we saw in the previous chapter, Helen made it clear that the neshama, the divinity, the soul, the spark, the life essence, the soul does not die when the body ceases to function. What dies is the vehicle. What dies is the vehicle, the biological form, the identity that learned to respond to a name, to a story, to a wound, and to fear, to race, color, creed, education, financial, mother, father, daughter, brother, sister, that which it is, that it identifies with. But that which observes behind all this does not disappear. It is only separated from the structure that kept it bound to the physical experience. It is not a journey as the human mind understands it. The neshama does not walk toward a territory with feet, nor does it cross a distance like a vessel moving across visible waters. But it would not be correct to say that it does not travel. It travels from another plane, from another dimension of perception that cannot be described with ordinary maps. It moves without moving, crosses without occupying space, returns without fully abandoning that to which it has always been connected. The celestial lands, some would say heaven, but I'm going to say celestial lands. According to Helen, the celestial lands, according to Helen, could not be explained as an ordinary physical region, although they certainly exist and are physically located. That is the difficult part to understand, and the part the custodians have never been able to grasp, at least until now. They are a plane interconnected with everything, yet hidden from consciousness, which in most cases remains trapped during life in the known lands under an imposed interference, the noise here. All right. During life, the body, the mental noise, identity, psychological time pull one away from the true path. When death comes, all of that falls away, and the neshama begins a journey difficult to narrate because it does not occur in a straight line, nor within known measures, but through the upper oceans. Some souls pass through that detachment with clarity. They recognize that they are not the name, nor the age, nor the body, nor the accumulated memories. Others remain wrapped for a time in what they believe themselves to be. It is an inertia, like a vibration that continues after the string is no longer being touched. Each soul encounters the degree of clarity or confusion it sustained in life. This is why you have to clear your cup of muck. If you die before you die, you will never die. You have to have the clarity. You have to detach from what you know as your physical body, what you think you are as a sex, a race, as an entity, and peel back those layers. That's what I mean when I say when you die before you die, you will never die. Does that make sense? That's me saying that. Okay, because that's my understanding, right? So it says, each soul encounters a degree of clarity or confusion it sustained in life. Helen explains that death does not invent a destiny, but reveals a direction. What in life was covered by fear, desire, guilt, or identification becomes exposed at death. What in life managed to open itself to the source, even for brief moments, finds less resistance in recognizing the path. In any case, both paths lead to the same place. For that reason, the journey of the neshama does not truly begin at death. It begins before, in every moment when the human being ceases to confuse himself completely with the voice of thought under the interference, knowing one of the true purposes of being. From the creation, with the physical connection established by the five masters and understanding human greatness from its past, the celestial lands are not a reward granted by an authority, but the plane to which the neshama belongs by nature. Although the word place is insufficient, they are not above, as simple images teach heaven above, all right? Nor are they at a great distance. They are connected with everything, but they can only be crossed from a definite condition of consciousness. That is why Helen speaks of a sacred journey, not a physical, but real. A journey of detachment, cleansing, return, and recognition. The neshama does not become something else. It remembers what it was before being covered by the dense experience of the body, the history, and the interference. And before closing, Helen leaves one deeper warning. Not all souls advance immediately towards the plane. Some wait. Some remain near the edges in regions difficult to name, beyond the walls, where memory, pain, and promise become intertwined. There are souls there still waiting for a moment to continue. This is the next step toward which we will go. The souls that wait beyond the ice walls. Okay? The transition. The neshama is not born in these lands, nor does it belong to the system. The neshama is not born in these lands, nor does it belong to the system that today sustains the new humanity. It is not a product of the body or of the mind, and therefore it is not subject to their deterioration. When the body ceases to function, what occurs is not an extinction of the neshama, but the interruption of the bond that kept it anchored to a physical and psychological structure within this environment. That detachment is not immediate in terms of experience.